Such a pleasure
Yeah,
to
man.
have you with us today. Uh, I think we start to know each other quite well, but the idea would be also to introduce you, your passion, the project, BioTara, the mission, everything to our audience. So would you mind, John, probably starting with
Yeah,
a quick introduction, and then let's see where the conversation takes us.
absolutely. I'll do my best to keep it tight. Um, now, Jan, I'm actually calling to you from Suriname, which is the most forested country on Earth, with over 92% of the country still being covered in Amazon rainforest, which is just beautiful. I can tell you, Jan, when you come here, because you are going to visit, I will show you one of the most beautiful natural landscapes you've ever
Can't
seen.
wait.
I promise you. Now, I actually live here. I was born here, and I've made it my mission in life to protect the Amazon rainforest of Suriname. And I'm doing that not for some metaphysical higher goal. It's because I actually want to have a good life. And it's because I want my children to have a good life. And without the rainforest, we're not going to have that. We're not going to have the water. We're not going to have the food. We're not going to have the protection. So knowing what's happening in terms of the biodiversity and the climate crises, I decided, I think it's 15 years ago now, I decided to completely shift my focus from the corporate world where I was at, right? I'm an economist, I have an MBA, I was working for the big companies. But once I knew that what was happening, I had to decide. And I said, no, I am going to work to make the rainforest worth more alive than dead. And that is what BioTara does. BioTara was created to create the economic logic, if you will, for rainforest protection. It's not going to solve everything, but we are looking to contribute. We want to do our part to help make rainforests worth more alive than dead by helping to integrate these beautiful botanical ingredients into the global cosmetics industry. And that's
So
what we're looking to do.
we are going to probably deep dive a bit more on how you're doing this and how others can contribute to it. But you said you had that realization around 15 years ago. So what triggered that pivot from the corporate world?
So what happened is I was a consultant at the time. I had a consulting firm and I was doing this assignment for the government. And they asked me to calculate in economic terms what had conservation policies delivered the country over the last 20 something years, right? That's what they asked. They said, John, calculate conservation. What has conservation meant to Suriname? We're the greenest country in the world, but where's the payoff? Do we have jobs? Do we have money? What did we get? So I did this research, and to answer the question, I had to start to understand, what does conservation actually mean, right? You ask somebody, what is nature conservation? They might have a completely different idea. So I had to find out, what does it mean? And then in the process of learning what it means, I learned about biodiversity, I learned about climate change, and I learned that the city I grew up in, where I am right now, is no longer going to be inhabitable within this century. So the city I grew up in is drowning as we speak. We are at sea level. We have almost no sea defenses. We're flooding every year. It's getting harder and harder to live where we are. And as I learned that, I had to decide, what am I going to tell my children 20 years from now when they ask me, hey, Dad, what were you doing when the world was burning and our city was drowning? And I had to decide, is it going to be, oh, honey, I was making a buck? Or am I going to be able to say with pride that I tried to do my part? And that's what I'm doing. I'm
Yeah, I
trying to
think
do
like
my part.
so you started with the projects, and they also, like when we discussed, like the facts were just like shocking. Really, when you go into the heart of it and you see how it's going to impact, and you have also this personal connection to a place you grew up in. I think the emotional
Yeah.
realization is particularly strong. And then you continued your relationship with the government, right? So you had that project, and then you went a bit deeper
Right.
on that topic.
Yes, exactly. So, right. So what I found out was that Suriname is the most forested country on earth, and is getting the least compensation for climate finance and biodiversity finance. Almost no money is coming here for those topics. So I wrote some policy papers, and I actually got appointed as a presidential advisor. This was in 2011. And I then negotiated at the UN for my country for a number of years. I led the climate change program, and I was able to define and get funded the National Forest Program for Climate. It's a multi-million-dollar project to help get the government ready to improve its forest management and get paid by climate finance. I did that for a couple of years. Then I ran Conservation International, Suriname, for close to a decade. And then it was a couple of years ago now, in 2022, I actually decided to leave conservation as an NGO, not leave conservation as a mission, but I decided that 10 years of leading an NGO was enough, right? I felt that I had learned what I could, and I also felt that I wanted to really make a bigger difference, right? And I felt that I needed to take risk to be able to do that. And taking risk within international NGOs is very difficult. So I realized that if I wanted to do this, if I wanted to take this leap and do more, I'm going to have to leave NGO world and go back to the world of entrepreneurism, which is where I am, right? So I was at CI doing this work, and then I found this thing that called to me, that showed me how I could have a huge impact using cosmetics, ingredients, and I wanted to do it. So to do it, I had to resign. So I left Conservation International and started this new company 3 years ago now. Let's say at the end of January 1st, 2023, you could say, is when I started this. And I have to say that it's super exciting, the opportunities that we see, but the challenges are also daunting, right? Because they are real. There is very real competition for these resources globally, land resources, but huge opportunity there. And I'm super excited to be working with a lot of leading companies already, like Colgate-Palmolive and Aveda. We're working with those companies to integrate our ingredients into their portfolio, and to be able to build these relationships.
What I find really interesting is, like, when you talk about your competitors, you don't talk about other ingredient supplies. You talk about people fighting for the same resources on the land, right? Can you probably elaborate a bit on this, because this is quite unconventional in the industry.
I guess so. Yeah, that's what I hear. People keep telling me that I'm a little bit different. Maybe I'm a little bit of an outsider from that sense. So I look at what we're doing, Jan, not as competing with other suppliers of the same ingredients. So let's take a step back. So what is it we're actually saying, right? At BioTara, what we're saying at BioTara is that if the cosmetics industry were to take just a small portion of their sourcing budget and channel it towards Amazonia, that Amazonia will receive much more money. And if we make sure that the money hits the communities that actually live in the forest, then those communities can make different decisions in terms of their land use. Because when we think about forests, it's about land use, right? So somebody living in the forest isn't walking around thinking, oh, I want to cut it down. No, they're thinking, I need to eat. So if the cosmetics industry embraces the set of ingredients from Amazonia, then the demand for them will go up, which I myself wouldn't be able to attend the entire demand anyway, right? I mean, I don't, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to capture and corner this whole market. I'm trying to help create this new industry, or the demand for it, where we're saying we would like to see a transition from some chemical ingredients like silicone D5, for example, right? Which is being outlawed now. If we can offer, let's say, tucumã butter, which has some of the same characteristics and can perform some of the same functions. If we can get the industry to embrace something like tucumã instead of silicone D5, what that's going to do is increase by many folds the demand. Then, of course, the industry is going to have to start shifting. It's going to take a while for for supply to catch up to that kind of demand, but it will, because the trees are there, the people are there, the resources are there. What we need is to have the demand grow to be sufficient so that many of us, people like myself, can then supply this. Because I feel that if a community is already producing, let's say, tucumã butter as an ingredient and they're selling it, then they're already doing a good job. Then I don't need to do anything. Then I'm happy because they're earning money from this forest that remains standing, right? On the other hand, the chemical industries that are producing these, let's say, silicones, D4, 5, 6, or other permanent polluters, even, that's kind of dangerous for us as humans. So we are kind of looking to outcompete that in terms of function, quality, and just health quality, right? So that's who we look to be competing against, to compete with these chemical ingredients that are damaging to health in some cases and that remain in the environment in other cases. Because we believe that with our ingredients, you can have an incredibly good functional system with beautiful ingredients and beautiful products, but without the pollution and without the carcinogenics.
So there is a lot to unpack here. So, there is.
I know. I'm sorry. There's so much there.
Great. I mean, like if we look at the mission you have with the local communities and how you see also BioTara on the long term, that's one thing. The second element, you're also very open so on like how can we invite other suppliers to join this initiative, and also how do you see the role of BioTara to facilitate this? But before we go this way, one thing that I really took away from the discussion last year at the Soho House before in Cosmetic was really this emphasis on regenerative beauty, right? Of not trying to minimize the harm, but to maximize the good. And I think
Yes.
there is really, I think a lot of people underestimate now when they're looking at product and looking at ingredient, how this product can actually really benefit the environment in such an holistic way, right? You mentioned that you offer like more sustainable, healthier alternatives to some of the PFAS and silicons. You show how you help the local communities, so you have the livelihood. So you also align on so many of the UN challenge and so on. Probably if we deep dive now just on this regenerative beauty part, which is a topic that we as Covalo also want to address very soon, that would be really great.
Absolutely. Okay, so maybe it's a little bit metaphysical here or theoretical, but listen, we're talking about nature, so we're always going to get back to life and all of that. So, okay, how do I explain that best? So let's first talk a little bit about what does regeneration mean and why do we need it? Well, first we have to accept that where we are, we're in trouble. We're in trouble as a species because we have accidentally broken some of the life-supporting systems that we need on Earth. Pollination. We've killed so many insect species that pollination is becoming a challenge. We have huge reductions in ocean catch. We have people here that are running into trouble in terms of flooding. We've got crops that are no longer functioning as they were supposed to. So we broke stuff, right? We broke stuff. So it's not enough to sustain. We have to regenerate the planet. We have to fix some of these systems that we broke. Now, what I'm suggesting as BioTara is let us, we BioTara, together with other industry players, let us start to regenerate some of the forest. Right? There's a lot of things you can do, but I say let's regenerate the forest, because with the forest regenerated, we get the carbon capture, we get the oxygen production, we get the water regulation, we get the biodiversity housing, we get all of these different elements. So I say let's focus on forest and let's regenerate forest. Now, how do we regenerate forest? By actually producing ingredients, because it's counterintuitive, right? You're like, but you're taking something. Yes, but the way we do it is as follows. We work with a very strict regenerative protocol, and that begins with a conversation with a community living in the forest, where we go into the community, we ask them if they're interested in trading internationally, and if they are, we then start to analyze the forest that they manage to see what condition it's in. If it's in good condition, then we make a plan to keep it that way. But if it's not, we make a plan to improve it. So we go to regenerate the forest area there. Then what we do is we ensure that we only harvest from trees that have already been planted or that have grown naturally throughout the last 50 years. but we only take half the fruit. So let's, for everybody who doesn't quite know what we do yet, let me start by just explaining exactly what it is we do. BioTara supports Amazonia communities to trade internationally with international cosmetics companies. So we work with co-ops in the forest to produce and sell ingredients to the outside world. Okay, that's what we do. So we go into this community. If they want to do business with us and they want us to help them trade, we do that after we agree to the regenerative principles. You only take half. There's no deforestation or conversion. The residues are turned into biochar and are buried in the harvest areas so that we improve the carbon storage of the harvest areas, while at the same time strengthening the resilience of the forest, which then in turn improves the viability of the supply chain for our customers down the road as well. So it's not just good for the environment, it's good for business, because with this regenerative management and these protocols of harvesting, we ensure that people that buy from the communities that we work with will always have supply. Because even in climate crisis or when you've got big droughts, when you have healthy forest, you have a higher chance of actually getting your ingredients. So it's good for planet, good for people, good for business.
Amazing. I mean, like you've been doing this now, you said 15 years and then BioTara since 23. How was the reaction of people at the beginning? So on the ground, and how did this evolve over the last couple of years?
Yeah. Well, to be really honest with you, Jan, I am coming off of a very big learning curve. So when I left NGO world, I actually thought, I really did. I thought everybody's going to want this product. I thought people care. People want green products. They want to save the world. Jan, I'm not saying that there aren't people who want to do that, but it's not how purchasing decisions are made. It's just not. I really thought, I'm going to generate these carbon negative ingredients and social impacts and biodiversity positive, and everybody's going to want this product. Oh, we're going to be sold out all the time. It's not quite that easy. What I've learned is that if you don't have a product people need, then they can't buy it from you, even if they want to. You need a product. And an ingredient is not necessarily a product, right? Why do I say that? I've learned that me talking about the beautiful aspects of Tucumã and Murumuru and the communities, people love hearing it, but when it comes time to pay, they need a certain value in return. And I've learned that that value can be gotten from functional replacement instead of individual replacement. So I had initially thought I was going to go out and sell Murumuru. No. People don't want Murumuru. They want slip, or they want traction, or they want, a certain feeling. They don't want an ingredient. They want a function. They want a result. So I've had to really, really learn much more than what this ingredient looks like, but really, what can it do? What can you do with these beautiful ingredients? So I've had to really go through a process where I initially thought the environmental benefits would be enough, to really understanding that you really do need a product first approach, right? You need to really understand what the client needs, and then you need to live in their world. And we know what formulators need are functions. For example, we'll get into this in a little bit, right? We talked about what is the function of the silicone building set, right? Which many formulators have gotten accustomed to, where you use these permanent elements to get the right level of viscosity or thickness or slip or whatever you like. And we know now that those ingredients have issues with them. And we're looking to really try to offer a set of ingredients that together form an architecture that will allow formulators to mimic or very closely get to the same effect as these silicones, but without the permanent character that these silicones have, right? Which is an issue. So I learned again from going from this NGO trying to save the world to this very practical, industry relevant set of offers, right? Even if somebody wants to do the right thing, you need to make it possible for them to do so. So you need to offer them something that they can buy. So that's one of the things I've really been learning on.
And we will go into that in that topic. But if you look now, the local communities, not the buyers, the people on the ground that you have been now working with, that you
Yeah.
redistribute 75% of revenue to, and so on. Um, has it been easy to bring them on board? Have they been like directly, committed to the project, or it also took some?
Oh my gosh, dude, they love it. I tell you, I mean, okay. So let me be clear. We are not a one solution fits all. We're just not, right? We can't work with any community. We need a certain level of governance maturity or administrative organization, if you will, because we work with international corporates, and those corporates need stability in their supply chain. So that means that we need a certain level of governance maturity, right? The people we work with in these cooperatives in the Amazon, they need to at least have a bank account, a lawyer, an accountant, annual reports, production facilities, at least one or more certifications in their chain, and they need to have experience in the collecting and production of this. If they meet those criteria, then we also look at some other deeper elements like financial literacy and education and health and infrastructure. And then based on that, if they qualify, then they get onboarded into our system because we don't want to create problems in these communities, right? We don't want to create problems where there's money flowing in and there's challenges coming. So you want to make sure that you've got the benefit sharing good, that you've got the grievance mechanisms in place. You really want to make sure that you improve the lives of people and not bring in new problems. And when we go through that whole process, we develop relationships with the communities and the community members and friendships even. And, and then you do this together. And what I've learned is people are super keen. Now, some are a little bit hesitant, right? Because you're coming in, you're not an international company. Can we trust them? But with time and with effort, that works out. And so far, we've been greeted incredibly well by multiple communities, mostly in Brazil. And we're already producing. We're producing, we're selling, and um, I'm learning every single time that I visit these beautiful communities in the Amazon.
Like in any transformation, you always have like the early adopters, the smart followers, and the laggards. It feels from our discussions
Yeah,
that you convinced a while ago the early adopters, and you are now heading higher up the curve. But there is definitely still some way to go.
exactly. Yeah. No, absolutely. And we were super honored to be part of the 100 Plus Accelerator, which is this program with Unilever and Coca-Cola and Mondelez and AB InBev and Colgate Palmolive, who selected to work with us in the accelerator and placed a nice order with us, which we then produced and were able to perfect our technology and move everything forward. So now we're working together with them to look at the next steps in terms of launching a global product. And now we're seeing more folks coming in. Like you said, the smart followers are starting to come in now. And I guess we'll see the laggards next year or the year after, but we are starting to see some uptick, yeah. But it's a very careful process, right? We know that formulations are sensitive, and we know that it takes time to get things right. So we see these really long buying cycles, which makes sense, right? Because we're dealing with products that come into our bodies and that interact with our endocrine systems and other elements. So it's important that these things are safe. So I definitely understand all that, which is also why we're working exclusively with ingredients that are already registered in Europe and the US, so by FDA approved and INCI registered. And all of our products are REACH exempt, just so you know. So all of our products are, I think, category 5 exemption because they're fully natural products. No reagents or other things are added or mixed in. It's fully natural product. So we are fully REACH compliant, which I think is also good for people to
It's,
know.
yeah, it's been a pleasure to follow also the development of the company, and just looking at the time because I'm sure we could talk for hours. But you mentioned now there were different elements that we addressed, right? So the number one that you need to solve a real problem, and in general we see in the industry there is more and more complexity. people are just genuinely overwhelmed. And therefore, if you don't make it into one of their top three priorities, they might consider you, they might appreciate what you do, but then it's difficult to then really gain momentum and align resources and
Yeah.
so on. And so one of the priorities that now you identified is really the silicon PFAS alternative with the ALA, the Amazonia Architecture Program.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yes.
as you
Yes.
say, it's not one-to-one alternatives. It's you are replacing a function through like different combinations. So it would be great if we could deep dive a bit on the program, but also probably in some of the concerns that some of the customers, the bigger companies, are typically, having about, you were mentioning stability of supply chain, stability of products, and so on. So, what has been your experience with all of this?
As we talked about, like you said last week, Jan, and we're getting ready for this for a series of conferences and fairs. We've been thinking, and talking about
Mhm.
what is it we actually offer, and we were talking about how the silicones are being phased out, and how this could present an opportunity for natural ingredients. However, we also landed on a very clear understanding that nobody's buying an ingredient for an ingredient's sake. People need a function. And if you look at what the function has been for the silicones, it's really been about creating texture, creating body, volume, and behavior, right? So how the actual material behaves. So we look at how does it do that? Well, it does that by creating these permanent chains, right? So it creates these chains on a molecular level, which then stay fixed, which so they're permanent, right? So these permanent structures. And these permanent structures then sit in, let's say, your liquid, if you will, and build up this consistency and how it behaves when you touch it. Now, what happens with the silicones is you use it and then you wash it and it goes into the drain, into our water systems, and comes back into our bodies. So we have it already a little bit comes in through osmosis, right? Some of the silicones come in and they stay in our bodies. That's been proven. And then a portion goes into our drainage systems and comes back into our food supplies and such. But it's by design because it's designed to be permanent. Okay, so it's permanent by design. Now, the REACH, the ECH, the European Chemical Agency, has said we need to stop using that because of the bioaccumulation and other health concerns. So those are being outlawed. So then the question becomes, how do we step in? And that's where we've been working on what we call the Amazonia lipid architecture. We're saying that by using a smart combination of different fats that have an Amazonia origin, we can actually mimic or very closely approach the same function that those silicones have had within the cosmetics formulation industry. But it does so through transience. So instead of permanence, we use a transitory structure. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that this structure that we can build with these other lipids, these other fats, these are essentially ingredients like tucumã, andiroba, açaí. If you take a combination of those three ingredients, you can build just about any level of solidity structure you like between a butter and an oil. So you can do it really hard like a body butter or a little bit softer like a creamier body butter just by mixing those three. And what will happen is that structure will break down through shear and temperature. So the structure you create with those three will disappear as you rub it into your skin or as you throw through your hair. So you use the structure as long as you need it, and then it breaks down and is fully metabolized. Oh, wow, right? So you can have the same function and have nothing left. So in other words, you're eating your whole plate, if you will. You're using the whole thing and you're not sending all this stuff into the atmosphere or into our water or keeping it in your body. It's fully metabolized. And that is achieved through a mix of saturated and unsaturated fatty chains, which are in the same place. So when you have saturated and unsaturated, you get differing melting points, which creates that kind of creamy or smooth structure or texture that we like so much in
I mean,
our
like,
creams and such. And that's what we're offering. So yeah. And it's not a single ingredient, right, Jan? It's a system. It's buying into the system. And the ALA is not something that you can get just from BioTara. No, it's for the entire industry. And we're looking for folks, suppliers, CDMOs, users, come and work with us. Let's figure this out together. Let's develop the ALA together as an industry, and let's move away from these things that are killing us as humanity and into things that help us thrive. Right? Let's start using these nature-based ingredients that are fully metabolizable, that use a transient structure as opposed to a permanent structure. And by buying these things, we're actually doing more good, right? So what we're saying, you touched on this earlier. I said, companies, as they are looking at their environmental and social governance systems, they often focus on how can we reduce harm. Well, I'm actually saying, let's flip that around and say, how can you do the most good? And what we're seeing here is that by, for example, signing on to using a system like ALA, which is directly linked to natural ingredients from the Amazon, we are actually helping that transition happen, right? We are actually helping to move away and make possible get it into this. And at the same time, offer something great for your customers. So you can do a lot of good, help regenerate the Amazon, improve lives of people, reduce your footprint on the environment, and also offer great, better, healthier products to your customers.
It's also like the way you went from focusing on the ingredient to the system, and you also experimented quite a lot with different formulations. Some of them really feel incredible. But another thing that I found really, really nice is what we discussed last time was about the concept of lean formulation, right? You were able to do a product using only 4 ingredients and having something that...
Yes.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah.
Yeah. I got it. I have some here. Oh, they're here. Wait 1 second. Here. So as you know, like you said, I experiment a lot, right? So my wife and I also have another smaller company that does botanical ingredients. This one here is amazing, and it only has 4 ingredients. That's it. 4 ingredients. That's it. This one it has Brazil nut oil, it has mint, it has tocopherol, and I think that's even it. This is 3 ingredients even.
And so are you using it on a daily basis?
Yeah. I use this one a lot. I have one that I shave with. So we have multiple. We have a body butter, we have a shaving oil, we have a hair oil, we have a face oil. And this one here is actually the hair oil. But I also use a shaving one, which is kind of the same bottle, but it's a different name. But what we saw in formulating these is what I shared with you, right? So you have this, you take the butter out, and then before you know it, it's complete. Like when you start rubbing it in, it really smoothly becomes oil and gets absorbed. It's amazing. And it's super lean because this will have 2 years. It'll stay 2 years, right? This will have, and it's got some tocopherol, right? Some vitamin E, but that's it. No need for all these other hundreds of other ingredients. This is beautiful. It smells great. You can drink it. You know what? So this is the thing, right? No problem. It's Brazil nut. It's Brazil nut oil and mint. I love it. It tastes pretty good. Let me see. It's pretty good, Yann. So it's cosmetics you can drink. It's a cosmetic
out.
You can drink and eat because it's fully metabolizable.
Beauty inside out.
Huh? That's right.
Going into the supplement business now. We have a new business.
Gosh. No, I should have practiced that. Huh?
You're absolutely glowing now. I think it's also
this is good stuff.
When we talk to different brands, like I always wanted also to ask consumers. So when I go to a supermarket and so just stop random people and ask a few questions of why do you buy this product, right? What was influencing your decision, or why do you buy the cosmetic product that you buy? And the very first emotional connection with the product is the texture and is the smell. And if the texture and the smell are not compelling enough for you to stick to a product, then you will also never get to the benefits, right? So, and we've seen a lot of customers experimenting with new textures, like for all type of product, and we had like all the trends around solid cosmetic, which was also quite sustainable, but then a bit tricky because people didn't like the experience. So if you're able to offer a sustainable alternative that is stable, that feels good and does good, that is a pretty amazing combo.
It, Jan, it sounds weird, but it is, and this is not new. We used to make cosmetics using natural ingredients. It started out with people crunching up rose leaves and adding a little bit of oil. That's how cosmetics started, Jan. It's going back to nature. It's going back to the origins. This is not new. This is how we used to live. We've forgotten. We've gotten out of touch, and nature's calling us back. That's what this is. It's us remembering. It's remembering what works. That's all. And these ingredients are already being used by top companies worldwide: L'Oreal, Aveda, Lush, Natura. I mean, this is not new. All we're doing is we're opening it up to the world, and we're adding a different lens. We're saying it's not just about the ingredient, it's about what's behind the ingredient. We're saying it's not just a decision to buy what you need, it's a decision to also invest in nature with that same dollar, because it's not either or. We're not saying give away money. This is not philanthropy. This is good, solid business. This is sitting down with companies and helping them chart their own future and mitigating their risks for regulatory issues later on. Because we know that, as with the silicones and the PFAS, other things are following. So the time to become lean and to minimize your risk is now. This is the time to start making that transition.
So I think like as final words, two questions. So number one, what is your ask or demand, to the industry? We on the brand side, so you want
Yeah.
formulators to experiment
So
with ALA. You want brands to explore also the potential. You want consumers to also demand for it. You want suppliers to join
that's
forces and also explore partnership. And so to move from siloed activities to more collective efforts to advance. What else can you ask for?
what else? You already tested everything, Jan. No, I think and I should discuss this with you, Jan. I think this is a conversation we need to have at an industry level. And I'm inviting you. You're already a part of this partnership. I'm opening up, and I'm inviting others as well to work with us together to let's say create the understanding within the industry that this is a good thing. Nature-based ingredients are a good thing, not just for the planet, not just for the customers, but also for your bottom line. You mitigate risk. There's no big green premium to be paid. We're offering at par market rates. What we need, however, is we need people to think long term and to also maybe park the opportunism a little bit, just a little bit. Agree to standardized long term offtake agreements with forest based communities so that they can develop themselves as well. If you start using these products, but you then start looking for the lowest prices every year and you wait till last minute to get the best prices, then you're probably not going to be helping the communities as much as you might think, because that creates uncertainty, that reduces the opportunity for them to maybe deforest because they're not sure what they're going to get next year. So my request for those using these types of ingredients already or interested in using them, please consider doing so with purpose and with longevity in mind, entering into long-term relationships. And the other thing I would ask is come and see us at In Cosmetic or at Sustainable Cosmetics Summit or at the Sustainable in Beauty Forum in Amsterdam. We're going to be all over the place. So, come and say hi and come and feel. Or we're also going to have a sensory bar at In Cosmetic in Paris. So come and join and feel and play with the ALA there, if you will. And otherwise, just reach out and let's have a conversation to see, how we can help boost your brand's positioning in this new world, while also helping to mitigate some of the operational risks that are coming on due to regulatory
I mean, your
changes.
your energy and passion is very, very contagious. So I hope your call and ask will resonate. We will definitely see each other in cosmetic. And also a reminder
Let's
to
do that.
everyone that the change, we don't need to boil the ocean from the beginning. We can also start small and iterate, right? People tend to take a long time to take a decision, but then it's an all or nothing approach. And sometimes to just take small step, but take them quickly and learn is sometimes a much better approach.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, and folks, we have a website online, biotara.earth. Visit. You can order samples if you're interested, or you can, for those who are already using our types of ingredients, you can also buy 1 kilos online for a quick formulation if you ran out of something. So people to know, you can check us out online and order samples as well as buy
We'll
ingredients
share
there.
all the details, including the link to your Covalo account. And
Of course, on Covalo. Where else? You find us on Covalo.
John, thank you so, so much. And yeah, see you very, very soon.
Thanks, everybody. Bye bye.